to briefly introduce our next speaker. He's been a friend of mine since probably 1989. I'm his child's godfather. We've done a lot together, but he's a good friend, and I'll let him introduce who he is professionally, but he's a real good friend to me. So Kurt, take it away.
Thanks, Robert. Can everybody hear me? Okay, don't know about the microphone. I first want to thank Robert for having me to come up here. He said, we've known each other since 1989, and I couldn't ask for a better friend. He's a fine man, and I've had a chance to meet a lot of you last night, and it's wonderful to be up here to have a chance to talk with you about some of the new and exciting things about the ADA today. A couple of housekeeping notes quick before we get started, if we could. Penny, my assistant, will be running my PowerPoint presentation here. Bear with us. My head can't turn as well as it used to could, so we might have a slide or two off now and again, but we'll try to keep along. Number two, she's got all of my business cards that I will pass out, or she can pass out to you guys after the presentation. Number three, if you could hold your questions, I want to answer all of your questions, but if you can hold your questions till I'm done with my presentation. My goal is to have about a 30 or 40 minute presentation, and then us have about a 30-minute Q&A period, okay? So that's the goal. I want to answer all your questions, and finally, I will be here through tomorrow morning. Corner me, grab me up. I've got issues. I need you to help me in my community. I want you to come visit me, whatever. I'm here for you, okay? So we're here, use me, that kind of thing. I want to encourage you to. Just a little bit about myself to tell you what I do and what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Right after the ADA was passed into law, I received specialized training from the U.S. Department of Justice the summer of 1992 and the summer of 1993. The first phase of training was for 400 people with disabilities that were really advocates in their community. You had to complete a long, form and questionnaire to get accepted into the training. Then we had responsibilities for the next year. And if you completed those responsibilities successfully, they invited another 200 the following summer for phase 2 of training, where we really got into the fine details of what the Department of Justice and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission wanted us to know about the ADA. So I kind of got in on the ground level. The next 4 years, I worked for an architectural firm reviewing their plans and also surveying facilities that they had worked on and had barriers at. In '96, I started my own firm, and there was a real paradigm shift in the way that the ADA was implemented and or not implemented in the United States. You may not know it, and some of you may, but still 90% of America is wildly inaccessible. And when I say 90%, I may be conservative with that number. We have a lot of work to do. We've come a little bit of ways. We've got an awful long ways to go. This is not going to be, I hope, a boring ADA presentation. I'm not going to sit here and give you song and verse of what 4.13.6 says of the ADA. That's the technical stuff that I have to deal with every single day. What I want to do is I want to talk to you about some of the new changes of the 2010 ADA. I want to talk to you about, we're going to look at some of the real barriers that are out there in the community. I'm going to show you some before and after pictures of fixes that we've done. And we're going to talk about what you can do to enforce the ADA in your community. We've got 30-something or 40 people here. There's an awful lot that we can do with this nucleus of people. We've got about 2,000 people right now in the United States of America doing ADA work for 55 million Americans that have disabilities. That is a travesty to me. Okay? Forward. Okay, so these are what we're going to have as our objectives. What's new with the ADA today? You know, what kinds of barriers, as we said. How can these barriers be removed? How can you enforce? And where do we go from here when we leave today? I want to go back to myself. For a second, once I left the architectural firm and started my own firm, I began to survey properties around the United States. To date, I've surveyed probably some 1,500 properties. Unfortunately, about 90%, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, 90% of those properties are surveyed under litigation. And I will tell you some things today that may shock a lot of you about the way businesses view people with disabilities and the way they view the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's true. I work with people with disabilities, I work with businesses, and it is hard to get the businesses to want to do a thing. So, and this comes from 18 years of experience doing it. But with that said, like I said, I have surveyed some 1,800 facilities at this point, everything from a barber shop to stadiums, entire campuses, city sidewalks and school systems and hotels and restaurants and you name it, we've pretty well done it. Forward. Go ahead. Okay, what's new with the ADA today? Okay, you can forward. All right. Does everybody, by show of hands or a sound or whatever, who knows that there is a 2010 ADA now passed that has taken the place of the original ADA? A few? Okay, okay. Yeah. Yeah, great, great. There are some, yeah, I understand, right. There are some pieces of the 2010 ADA that are less stringent or less strict than the 1991 ADA. For the most part, the 2010 ADA brings us a lot more accessibility. I mean, an enormous amount of accessibility. One of the primary things to remember before I talk about the list here is that there are a whole host of things that were not included in the original ADA that are now required to be accessible. For example, the thing I don't have on here is swimming pools. We used to have to, absolutely. Swimming pools, there used to be, the law required that there be an accessible route to the pool, but not to get into the pool. Hello? Ladies and gentlemen, we now have an ADA, we now have a law behind us that if we have less than 300 linear wall space, okay, feet of wall space, at the pool, you have to have at least one route, accessible route into the pool, either a zero entry kind of pool lift where it just gently slopes down, or you have to have a lift. If you've got 300 or more feet, you have to have two means of accessible routes of entry. And this does not just apply to your hotel swimming pools. This applies to your lazy river rides at Six Flags or Disney or Busch Gardens, wherever you guys like to go. It applies to saunas, spas, jacuzzis, you name it. You've got to have access down into these, okay? It's a big difference. Go through the other. Everything that's amusement now is around, okay? It never used to be in the old ADA. Larger toilet rooms. You've gone in the toilet room, not a stall now, but a single-user toilet room. You've seen a lavatory, and right by the lavatory is the toilet. There's no way to get your chair between the toilet and the lavatory. Okay, Department of Justice realized that. We gave several comments, people with disabilities across the country saying, we've got to be able to get between the toilet and the lavatory to get on the toilet, okay? The new ADA requires larger toilet rooms. More companion seating. How many people are so, yeah. Okay, and it's a trick. I have to talk about that a little bit. You get one seat, right, for a companion. So if you want to go with 4 to watch a concert or go to a ball game or whatever, everybody else has to sit somewhere else than where you're sitting. No longer the case. It's still a minimum of 1 companion seat, but regulations now say that you can buy up to 4, that's a companion seat, and 3 more seats that are adjacent to where the wheelchair seating is, and so that would be 5 total. You and 4 other people that can sit beside you. Okay, and so they have to, of course, if they've already sold out and you're the last one to call in the last night, then the requirement is still a minimum of 1 companion seat. But if the seats are available adjacent to you, they have to agree to sell you 5 together. Okay, you and 4 companions. So you can now go with your family. Lowered bars for all of... That's fine. Bless you. Lowered bars for those of you that like to drink. I know nobody in here does. But for those of you that like to drink, there now is a requirement. It used to be that you could lower the bar or lower a table in the bar area. Well, if you want to belly up to the bar and watch the ball game or whatever, now you can. It's going to be up to you guys to enforce it, but now we can. More van accessible parking. Yes, yes. Used to be that every 8 accessible parking spaces, 1 in 8 had to be van accessible. Now it's 1 in 6. Okay, so now we've upped the ante a little bit on van parking. Website accessibility for your friends that have visual impairments. It's going to be, the Justice has not handed down the official details of how website accessibility will be handled and be enforced, and the parameters that they have to follow. However, that is forthcoming before March 15th of 2012. So if people offer websites, whether it's Google, whether it's General Motors, whether it's whatever, it's going to have to be accessible to folks that have visual impairments as well. Yeah. Right. It's definitely going to be addressed. Sites are going to be, some people with visual impairments could tell you that are completely blind would know about sites that are already what we call Bobby-proofed, and it will actually read the site to you as you hover your mouse around and navigate around on the screen. So amusement rides are now going to be required to be accessible, believe it or not. Accessible cars where you can ride in your chair in the cars. Now, safety is still an issue with the ADA, so if you like to ride the Mad Twisted Cobra, you know, then you may or may not be able to ride that.
People in buses can go in a wheelchair. What about airplanes? It would be so good to just ride your wheelchair on the plane, strap it down, and so
Yeah.
they don't take it and jam it and bash
Yeah.
it. And what about that? Could y'all
If
do
you
that?
can, if everybody can hold their questions till I'm done, they're very important to me. But I think if I stop while we go along, we won't get as many questions answered. But I do want to address that issue. Definitely. But amusement rides. So all the time you've gone to the parks, you've gone to Disney, you've gone to wherever, and you watch while everybody else rides. We can change that now. Recreational boating facilities. You have to be able to get down onto the pier. You have to be able to get onto a jet ski, get onto a water taxi, whatever it is you want to ride. Forward. Bowling lanes, which most of you have seen in bowling alleys, they make those fairly accessible anyway, but now it's actually required to do so. Exercise machines, fishing piers, golf facilities. Yep, absolutely. Teeing grounds, driving ranges, golf courses, everything, and swimming pools. Okay, go ahead. Okay, I want to go through a little bit of stuff. You'll get a kick out of some of these pictures, but these are some things, some people I really know in the country, and I have tons of old barriers, but I'm just going to show you a few and see if you can figure them out. I think some of them are fairly obvious, and some of them you really won't believe, but they're actually out there. How about that one? Okay, now this one's not so funny or whatever, but what kinds of barriers can we pick out in that toilet room? First one I want to point out is that's too small. You can't get the chair between the toilet and the lavatory to make a transfer over onto the toilet, right? Yes, ma'am, Rebecca. Okay, that meets the requirements for grab bars, a side and a rear grab bar. Yep, it does. What else might be a problem in that bathroom, though? I'm sorry? You're right, and the door is too narrow. That doorway is too narrow.
It looks like the toilet is low.
That toilet's actually a good height, but it's way up against the wall. It's real close to the wall, so that you're using the grab bar is going to be almost impossible. You have pipes underneath the lavatory that are exposed. People that don't have good feeling in their legs can burn their legs. And what about you guys that need a lever handle on the lavatory? Those things require twisting. You're never going to operate them. Okay, so you've got several barriers just in that picture. Forward. Okay, good ramp, right? It's at a dentist's office that we surveyed. What's wrong with the ramp, guys? No what? No handrails? Right. Easy to fall off the side, right? No edge protection, no handrails. They did put, if you'll notice, we had them installed. This is actually a post-inspection after I'd given them a full report. They put in an automatic door opener, you'll see at the bottom. They put in an automatic door opener. They didn't put in my handrails or edge protection to keep people from falling off. Forward. Like I said, we'll have a little humor in a minute, but what about this one? What do we got here? No handrails. What else?
You can't go under the sink.
Can't go under the sink? Yes? I'm sorry? What now?
Too little.
Oh yeah, very small. Can't get in there. Too narrow, can't get a chair in there. That's right. The mirror, very good eye. Mirror too high. What else? What is it? Doorknob. You said doorknob? All right, everybody nailed it. Next, we got some educated people here. All right, how many barriers we have here?
That water fountain's too high.
Counter's too high. That water fountain's actually okay for the height. There are issues around the water fountain. Now, what else might there be? It's not wide enough to approach the lavatory in the alcove where it is. And the ADA actually requires that there be a low fountain for those of us in chairs, and there be a high fountain for people that have difficulty bending or stooping, or a Dixie cup dispenser in lieu of a high drinking fountain. They don't have either one. So that's the 3 barriers in that photo. Go ahead. Old-fashioned wheelchair, that's not a barrier. That was just this guy's choice. What's the problem there? Is there a problem? But why? But why? Okay, it's not a requirement that you have an automatic door, although here that might be a solution for our problem. The problem is it's a requirement that you have a level area 5 feet deep so you can sit still at the door. Obviously, this gentleman's having to try to go up a hill and grab the door and hold on to his chair. Well, if he lets go of the chair's rolling backwards on him. All right? Now we're going to get to some good ones. Y'all will love some of these. There we go. When you see the grates in the pavement, and they're more than a half an inch is this wide. That's the maximum, guys and girls. A half an inch. That is an older style. That's an older style picture because I'm an older guy. I've been doing it 18 years. But yeah, this was a picture of a gentleman that was stuck until he got help to get out of there. And as you know, that can throw you out. Forward. What's the problem with that, if any?
Somebody could walk into it.
Absolutely. What are blind people going to do that have their cane walking down through there? They're going to be gored by this thing, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's a protruding object is what they call it. It's not thoughtful at all. You'll see that a lot where you're in an apartment complex or wherever and the stairs come down and there's no protection underneath it. The stairway from up, down, you walk right into the edge of the stairway. Forward. What are we talking about here?
It's not wide enough.
That's right. It's not wide enough to get the wheelchair on the side of the toilet. You see stalls like this all of the time. You guys are like me. Even more so, though, I was injured when I was very young because I have a spinal cord injury. Most of you guys were born with a disability. You've learned to adapt. Most of you were born before the ADA was passed. And you learn to just get along. That's what I did too. Guys, this isn't acceptable anymore. And how many of you by hand see toilet rooms just like this? All the time. And all right, keep your hands up, but be honest. How many of you before today thought that because it had grab bars on both sides and the toilet side and everything, that this was probably compliant with the ADA? That you thought it probably was?
I thought it probably was.
Right.
Because, particularly for me, my cerebral is such that I have to have something to hold on to the right, and my left side's really weak. So I can't really hold on with the left. So I thought, oh, okay, that would work, but I see what you're talking about now.
Right. People that can't stand and make a 180-degree transfer, you have to have a lot of upper body strength or, be able to stand and turn to be able to use. This is only usable by a select few. Yes, ma'am.
I thought that when they made things accessible, if it was too costly or I forget the phrase, they only had to do what they could reasonably afford, or
That's
so whatever they put in or can put in, or I
right.
don't know the phrase, but it's cost-
Readily achievable is
Yeah,
the phrase.
so they
We'll
just do
talk
what they
about
can and to avoid a lawsuit.
we'll talk about that in a moment, but typically in design, this is an alternate that is only allowed if you don't have room to do the larger, fully accessible stall where you've got a lot of room to turn around and everything in there. This is called an alternate stall. Okay, forward.
I mean, at Walmart, I like the big stall they have at the end, and the door closes, and there's a lot of room to do either in front or at side. I mean, just because you can bring your wheelchair to the side of a toilet, to me, does not do access, because I still have to deal with my leg rests and
Right.
so that's why I like the Walmart.
Well, and let's go back to this. Let's go back to this other slide,
The
Penny.
standard. I don't know if it is or not.
A lot of you that have scooters, okay? I've had this taught with so many people. This kind of stall right here, you're ending up with the door left open for everybody to look at you. Some people have been robbed because they've had their basket on the front of their scooter or whatever. They back in and then swing their chair around on their scooter, leaving their basket on the outside. And people walk through the bathroom, grab their wallet or purse, whatever, yep. So, I mean, for so many reasons, and I understand what you're saying, Rebecca, and the ADA, just can't anticipate every single situation. But for so many reasons, the larger stall is most preferred by the most number of people that are either wheelchair or scooter users. Well, and you can get an assistant in there to help you transfer. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, what? This is real. I didn't make this up. You think? And what's worse, we surveyed this place. They didn't have any accessible parking. Even if they did, look how wide the little access aisle is between the two accessible spaces. It's 2 feet wide. You think you can let your lift down and get out on that without running into the next car? I surveyed this place, and I told them in my report clearly, we did CAD drawings that architects do. I put in my report where to put the accessible parking. It was to begin to the right of this column. I came back for a post inspection, and this is how they did it. Go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry. That was actually in Nebraska. That's in Nebraska.
I mean,
That's your Cornhuskers. Yeah.
Aren't the contractors trained when they put it in? They know the regs.
No, they do not. We'll talk about that too. They don't. Good question. What's the problem there? Well, yes, truncated domes have been eliminated from the 2010 ADA. Detectable warnings are no longer required. Yes, Chris. It's what? It's a little steep, yeah, but look at the whole picture.
You can only go up that. Where can you go?
Right. That
It's
you
like a
can
little
go.
island.
It's the point of what's the point of it? Where does it go to? Yeah, you go in, you turn around, you leave.
Danger. Some of these things are more dangerous than the streets.
Yeah, yeah. How can these barriers be removed? I'm going to show you a couple of before and afters, and then we're going to get into the preaching part of the thing, the revival section, if you will. And then we'll get into the Q&A. How can they be removed? I'll show you a before here. There we have parking spaces, no signs, no access aisles, no anything. This is a strip plaza I did out down in Florida. And after, we end up with something like that. Is that a lot better?
Now, why are the signs important? I mean, you see the.
Actually, if a parking lot is full, or almost full, and you don't have a sign sticking up above all the vehicles in a mall parking lot or something, nobody's going to know where the accessible parking is, or if there's any, even if there's any accessible parking provided. And the signs have to be high enough to be viewed over parked vehicles, a minimum height to the bottom of 60 inches to the bottom of the sign. Okay? That's new in the new ADA. It used to just specify that signs would be high enough to be viewed over parked vehicles. What does that mean? That's a little ambiguous. So we went back and made sure that Justice clarified that, and we actually have a measurement now that it has to be 60 inches to the bottom of the sign.
Plus, it says there's a fine if they park there. So they
That, in the states where they have fines, right? That's a state thing. What's the problem there? Right, no knee clearance. You can't get there. So we fixed that pretty easily. And did that. Did that. There we go. This one you really have to use your imagination because I worked on this. Of course, that's so narrow. The toilet's right up against the tub, so you can't use anything really. In the next picture, the toilet's going to be gone, but it's going to be over to our left. Show the next one. So we'll show you what really can be readily achievable a lot of times. We did this. We took out the tub, made a nice roll-in shower, okay? The lavatories on your far left, and then we were able to pull the toilet to the left of the lavatory even. And obviously the door has been widened enormously, so. Now this I wanted to show not as a before and an after, but as something, a lot of you might have heard that historical buildings don't have to comply with the ADA. Not true, okay? No, there's no such thing as grandfather in the ADA, although I'll talk about that in relation to the old 1991 ADA and the 2010 ADA. There's almost a hint of a grandfather now. But this is a building here in Virginia. I forget where it's actually a part of which university. But it's a historical house where they actually hold classes there. And the law says that nothing shall be done under the ADA that would threaten or destroy the historical significance of the property. Okay? Well, what we did, as you can see, is we put a lift, but it matches the decor of the times and everything, and everybody was very happy with that. It doesn't take away from the house at all. You kind of have to look at it to make sure it's a lift. So, okay, let's go ahead. So just some creative ways that we do things sometimes.